Super Rugby Aotearoa round number 6. One win kind of went according to plan with the Blues over the Canes, not without its controversy. And then prior to that, the Highlanders with a massive upset over the Crusaders. I don't know how many people saw that coming, but very few, I would imagine, because not many people go in and beat the Crusaders in Christchurch. Not many people beat the Crusaders full stop. But the Highlanders certainly did that. We'll go over the two games, some of the stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how things played out. First one, like I mentioned, Highlanders 33 points to 12 over the Crusaders. It's it's kind of an unbelievable one when you see just the amount of handling errors the Crusaders made in this game. It was very uncharacteristic, and the Highlanders were sharp, man. So it's a combination, I think, of the Highlanders being maybe fired up with some off-the-field stuff going into this game, and then the Crusaders just not being on form. Combination of those two things leads to a big win for the Highlanders. It started off, Will Jordan conceded a penalty with an aerial challenge on Connor Garden-Basher, but it got reversed because Scott Gregory, who's known to be a bit of a target for some fans' ire, was interfering with Will Jordan in the build-up, so the penalty got reversed, so Gregory gets penalised. And the Highlanders had a 5-metre line-out on 3 minutes. Interestingly, they decided not to maul it up. If you remember the first game these teams played in round 1, the Highlanders just insisted on trying to maul the Crusaders, and it was not working a damn. So at least they didn't score, but at least they tried something a wee bit different with some quick hands and the move. And this time, 6 minutes, the Highlanders actually managed to win a scrum penalty, and on 10 minutes they went out in front with the penalty to make it 3-0. They doubled that lead on 18 minutes to make it 6-0, but not before Folau Fakatava had kind of saved the Highlanders on their own goal line with a massive turnover at the breakdown. They won a penalty, so credit to him in that one. They opened the try scoring with former Crusader Billy Harmon on 24 minutes. It was, I guess just a lot of passes. I think it was 4 passes from right under the sticks out to the right wing. And, great conversion as well. Makes it 13 points to 0. Who's picking Highlanders 13-0? And who at that point is thinking, Crusaders will come back. Final 20, they'll, score easy 3 tries, put 20 points on. I was certainly in that camp because we've seen it happen with the Crusaders loads of times before. 30 minutes, Mitch Hunt pushed a very kickable penalty wide. And that's when I was worried about the momentum shifting, but he made up for it a couple of minutes later to make it 16-0. Now, the Highlanders did get another kind of save there. Blushes, turnover on their own line. I guess an example of some great defence on their own line. On 34 minutes, Scott Barrett had gone close. And right as you thought maybe the Crusaders are going to be nilled at half-time, they went past the 40-minute mark. And it was Cody Taylor who went over for the try. It was a 5-metre line out, a few phases, and he busted over. It was about 42 minutes, to be fair. I've written 40 there. And then suddenly it's like 16-7. 16-0, you're looking like, man, that's a hell of a lead. 16-7, the Crusaders can still bite you, right? So, after all that dominance in the first half, the Crusaders still managed to, for the Highlanders, the Crusaders still managed to score a try, which is very Crusader-like. Territory and possession is all Highlanders, 61% possession, 57% territory. Knock-ons is 6-1, with the Crusaders making 6. They've had 39% possession and they've managed to knock it on 6 times as often as the Highlanders. Very uncharacteristic, but good on the Highlanders, man. 1 knock on is some good hands. Total turnovers conceded, which includes knock-ons and pilfers and kicks out in the full and all that kind of stuff, is 12-5, with the Crusaders having 12, which again, when they've had less ball, is ridiculous. Crusaders start the second half with about 11 phases, and you're thinking maybe they're just about to get it right. They knock it on again. So still not kind of exercised those demons from the first half with the poor hands. And then they conceded a scrum penalty as well, which is, again, uncharacteristic. 51 minutes, it's the first penalty of the second half. The Highlanders kick it, so it's 19-7. And then on 58 minutes, Michael Collins gets a try. And suddenly you're starting to believe maybe the Highlanders are actually going to get a win here. And it was interesting that it was a try, which is usually the reversal, because the Crusaders had some poor hands, and then Will Jordan just needed to like run a ball into touch for the safe option, but he tries to kick it and he swings it air. It's a moment of kind of poor judgment and poor execution. So it's the Crusaders' couple of mistakes, and then the Highlanders punish it. Usually it's the other way around. Uncharacteristic, as I mentioned. So Highlanders with some phases, they go over. Collins is the man, 26 points to 7. Scott Gregory, I'll shout him out. 61 minutes. Ethan Blackadder off the back of a scrum, I think it was. Was a scrum or a maul? Either way, he peels off and he is tearing up at the line. Scott Gregory is the only man between him and the line, and Scott Gregory manages to bring him down. What a tackle. Kudos to that man. As I said, he's gotten a lot of grief over the last 18 months or so. Man, what a defensive play from him in that one. 64 minutes, the Crusaders had a couple of scrum resets, and eventually the Highlanders win a penalty, so they're still managing to hold out. Their defense is not starting to shake, despite the fact that we're past the hour mark, which is usually when the Crusaders pick it up. That being said, Aaron Smith's come on, and 67 minutes he gets a box kick charge down, and David Havili manages to go over for a score. So they kick at the conversion, but they miss it. So, that's a wee bit of a easy one, a soft try for the Highlanders to be conceding, which is not what you want. But speaking of soft tries, Crusaders' poor hands continue on 73. They are trying to run the ball from their own 22, which is kind of what you expect when you have to chase the game. They throw a pass to the dirt. Connor Garden-Bishop is the man who jumps on it, and sure enough, goes over for a try. And it's 33-12. And at that point, it was pretty much game over. And sure enough, the final few minutes pan out with no tries. Bridge knocks it on. Will Jordan has a line break. I think it was the other order of that. It was Will Jordan with the line break, but then George Bridge knocking it on. Final match stats. Knock-ons 10-4. So the Crusaders continued on that second half with some handling errors, but they still had more run meters. 471 to 369. Highlanders, and I should mention, I haven't really mentioned it in what we've been talking about thus far, Mitch Hunt controlled the game superbly. His kicking was putting the Crusaders guys back in their own territory. Very astute work with the boot. Obviously, he's a former Crusader, so he knows the ground pretty well. Kicks from hand is 35 to 23, so the Highlanders' kicking was very effective and, as I said, controlled the game really well. Broken tackles? No, that's not what I've got. What have I got? Scott Barrett makes 20 out of 22 tackles. Pretty solid shift from him. Billy Harmon on the other side makes 10 from 11. Mitch Hunt has 110 run meters, 3 clean breaks, and 3 defenders beaten. He's everywhere. If there's man of the match, it's probably him. Crusaders are still first, but now they are 4-1, so it's their first loss on the record, and the Highlanders are third, 2 wins, 3 losses. So the competition does open up a little bit now, but the Crusaders are obviously still pretty heavy favourites. It's pretty rare for them to lose 2 in a row. They've got the Hurricanes away next week, and the Hurricanes probably need to be wary because the Crusaders will be pretty mad, I would imagine. The Highlanders are home to the Chiefs. They'll be looking to kick on with another performance if they are going to challenge to be a real threat in the competition. The next game was the Blues and the Hurricanes. I don't think it quite lived up to the first game in terms of the drama. It had a bit of controversy. It was a bit ugly at times, to be honest. I know we all talk good things about New Zealand rugby and how, a lot of countries want to play like the Kiwis. This game wasn't the best ad for it, especially in that first half, but there were certainly some good plays. I don't want to bag it. It wasn't a terrible watch. It was a good game. I'm pretty happy my Blues managed to bounce back with a win. The refereeing stuff will have a bit of a controversy, as I mentioned, especially with a yellow card and penalty try, but we'll get to that. It starts off with the Hurricanes actually controlling the game pretty well. Papali'i wins a couple of turnovers for the Blues, and he's looked good. Especially with Sam Cane out, Papali'i maybe is putting his hand up for that number 7 jersey. 16 minutes. And I went back and rewatched the highlights before I came on to do this video. If you go look at the official highlights in the All Blacks YouTube page, it starts at 25 minutes. That kind of speaks to the opening part of the game. The highlights start at 25 minutes. Geordie Barrett is about to line up a penalty on 16 minutes, but they end up looking back at a clean out of Rugby on Aotearoa Black, who's not really affecting a ruck at all, but Rugby still cleans him out. I guess he sees first 5 in where he shouldn't belong, and boom, gets him. He doesn't really get him very hard, but he still hits him a bit high, so he gets yellow carded. I initially saw that and thought there can't be anything in that, but certainly there was, and it's just high, bro. So that's just the way it goes. Geordie missed the penalty on 20, and interestingly, with the yellow card, I thought the Canes looked the better of the two teams by a mile, and they did kick a penalty on like 27 minutes to make it 3-0. And they win the yellow card 3-0. The Blues don't even look like scoring. 30 minutes, the Blues managed to get a penalty try. And this is the one that's pretty controversial. I think Lomax initially gets pinged for coming in at the side, and then Xavier gets pinged again for dragging the thing down. And I've watched it a few times. First time when I watched it live, maybe that's where the ref gets it from as well. I thought, ooh, has Xavier dragged it down? But watching it multiple times, which is obviously something the ref doesn't have access to unless he goes to the TMO, which I guess he could have. It doesn't look like he drags it down. He goes through the middle as you do with maul defense, and the Blues guys just seem to kind of drop it on the line, like bring it down to fall towards the line, but they're a bit short. But Xavier cops a yellow card and it's a penalty try. That one I really don't agree with, even as a Blues fan. So I'll take that for what it's worth. So it's 7 points to 3. And then the Canes are back down to 14 men again. But again, with 14 men, they still look like the better team. It's bizarre. Geordie kicks a penalty to make it 7-6. The Blues kick one with Lomax being offside to make it 10-6. And then right before halftime, Geordie kicks another one to make it 10-9. So yellow card finishes 6 points to 3 in the Hurricanes' favour. So they've had 20 minutes with a man down and they've outscored the Blues 9 points to 3. It's bad from the Blues. Possession finishes 60-40 to the Canes. Territory 65-35 to the Canes. Knock-ons is 4-1 to the Blues. So the Blues aren't the better team in the first half. But both sides' defence is pretty high in the 90s, which is unusual for Super Rugby Aotearoa. I will say that. Second half, Geordie slots a long penalty, 50-odd metres to make it 12-10. So the Canes go back up in front. And 49 minutes... I can't read my own handwriting. Someone gets held up after 14 phases. Who was that? No idea. But it's one of the Blues guys. The Blues start to get fired up from that point. 50 minutes though. Faiane gets a try. Petafeta with a nice little step. It's a good move. Highlight worthy, that one. And he passes to TJ. Goes up for a try. Blues back in front. 17 points to 12. 67 Blues win a scrum penalty. 62. Starting to get back on top, maybe. Talea gets a try on 64. Rico with the big line break. I think he beats one of the Hurricanes props with gas, which is probably not too hard for him to do. He passes Talea. It's a big cutout pass, and a good conversion makes it 24-12. Princep does get a try on 76 after like a 5-metre maul and a few phases to make it 24-17. And then the Blues get one more penalty just to make it a 10-pointer. So... yeah, the Blues, it's another win for them. Not convincing. I think they were better in the second half, but the Canes were better in the first. You got to wonder if the Canes didn't have those yellow cards in the first half, would it have been a different outcome? But it's hard, man. It seemed to fire them up, if anything. Maybe if the Canes don't get those cards, they don't get fired up the same way. We'll never know because you can't go and play that situation out. Run meters finished 358 to 322, so pretty tight. Possession finishes 56 and territory 59 to the Canes. But clean breaks is 8-4 to the Blues. So the Blues were kind of cutting with less ball. But defenders beaten is 18-10 to the Canes. So maybe going through here rather than round here. Penalties conceded as 9 apiece. Both sides tackles finish pretty high. The Canes are in the low 90s. The Blues are in the high 80s. So pretty tight. The Blues make about 52 more tackles though. 152 to 100. Rico actually made 6 from 8 this week. Remember, he missed 6 last week, so better showing. Papali'i is huge, makes 15 from 15. Geordie Barrett with his 4 penalties is pretty good. I think Lomax has like 10 tackles, but he still doesn't seem like the finished article at the moment to mine. Blues are in second, 3-2. And remember with the Highlanders have kind of done the Blues a favour by keeping the Crusaders within touching distance, but they've also put pressure on the Blues because they're catching them up. So, yeah, and the Hurricanes are in 5th, 1 win and 4 losses. The Hurricanes, as I mentioned, got the Crusaders next week, albeit at home, tough ask, and the Blues will go on the bye. So, yeah, Crusaders will be disappointed with their handling and the way they handled that first game, but you can take nothing away from a solid Highlanders performance. And for the Blues, probably a bit fortunate with the ref in that first half, but I thought they were the better team in the second half. But for Canes fans, you'll be kind of ruining the ref's decisions and wondering what might have been. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. What did you reckon? How much of a threat are the Highlanders, or do you think this is kind of a one-off? Maybe the Crusaders slightly went to sleep thinking they could just kind of cruise it in. It doesn't seem like it. The Crusaders are not that kind of team. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.